knowing that you have the power to say no, because that is in service of a potential client, right? Because I never want to get into a relationship with a client where I don't see how it is that I can serve them. And you bring up another really good point, which is, we're a conduit for them, right? We're helping them to see what they can't and asking them the right questions to guide them in their right path. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Power in the Pause podcast. How are you doing today? As a reminder, please do not forget to hit subscribe, leave me a 5-star rating and a review. I want to make sure that more people are able to find this podcast. And I also want to make sure that you guys don't miss a single episode that comes out every single week. So thank you guys for tuning in today, where I am joined by Christine Campbell Rapin. Hello, Christine. How are you?
I am awesome. Thank you.
So good to see you and so wonderful to have you here. And you guys, we are going to talk about slowing down to speed up the value that you create. So before we dive in, I want to share a little bit more with you about Christine. So Christine is a business mentor, consultant, and owner of Clear Acceleration Incorporated. She has a no-nonsense approach to helping business owners achieve consistent client growth by improving client conversion rates. Creative service-based business owners and consultants seek her out to create consistently profitable businesses by implementing effective marketing and business strategies and to scale successfully. And so I'm excited Christine is here because I heard her on another podcast that I was listening to and was just blown away. And then, of course, I had to binge listen to her podcast because I wanted to, number one, make sure that this would be a relevant conversation. It wasn't just me being, Wendy and loving the content that she talks about, but I really saw a ton of value in what I saw that she could add to this podcast today. So Christine, I would love for you to share with our audience today, how it is that you have done, what led you to the work that you do today and how it is that you've embraced sort of a pause or a slowing down that led you to create this incredible business and the impact that you're able to have with your clients.
It's an interesting story. I sort of have always been in the world of business. It was something I watched from a really young age. My dad was in the world of business. He's, that old school generation where the handshake is the integrity piece. Contracts didn't need to be 8,000 pages long. And I watched him build relationships. And I knew I would at some point want to create my own business. And I knew that from probably a pretty young age because I was around some really great women business owners early in my career. And I started educating myself to be in the world of business. And I have a really interesting career background because I have worked successfully across the job functions. And I've worked in different industries and in different parts of the world. And it was curiosity that was always the driver. I started in marketing and I kept saying, it's pretty, so what? That was really irritating, by the way, to the marketing teams. And then I said, well, but if you're going to depend to a salesperson, you've got to have more than style. That led me into business development. And then as I was starting to build business development and inspiring people, they could catch the vision that we were creating. I kept looking at why are we not delivering? What the hell? I didn't want my reputation impinged. So I then got invited to really work on the back end and really work on the operational side. And in the world of business, the only way you stay at the table is if you're creating success for other people. And I was great at it. And it led me to new opportunities. And I was always the unlikely hire. But I was curious enough to say, I know this much, and I'm really good at this, but I am curious about how it interacts with everything else. And it's that connecting the dots that has led me to where I am today, because I never set out to be a business mentor. And I tell people that's such an important thing for you to know if you're ever in my ecosystem or you ever consider even hiring me, because I think the way the business world is, people who call themselves business coaches have never created businesses, and it's evident. There's a one pony, one strategy approach that they take. And when it doesn't work, they look at you as you're at fault. Versus I had approached this like, I want to be a great entrepreneur. And I've done that in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different industries, and in a lot of different places. But business is elegantly simple because I've been able to see the consistencies because of that diversity. And as a result, people kept saying to me, what the hell are you doing to create your business? Because I know that you have a lot of other priorities. When I first started my first business, I built it 1 hour a day. And that's not hyperbole. That's just truth. Because I had a full-time career. I traveled a lot. I ran half the country. I was getting married, adopting bonus kids and a dog, building a house. Like I didn't have time. Time was a luxury. But I got curious when someone said, I think you need to know about this opportunity. And I was like, I'm fascinated. Do you even remember my name? Because the person who approached me did so on LinkedIn and talked to her in 10 years. And we were not friends in the office. We were colleagues. But she knew that I was curious and that I wanted to create something. And I left that impression with her. And she sparked my imagination. So I built it 1 hour a day. And people kept saying to me, can I buy you coffee or a glass of wine or a beer, depending on how you knew me? And I want you to really distill business for me. And I would, because I want to make people successful. And then they go, I can see it. I can see that simplicity. And I don't get that a lot in the marketplace. And they would be inspired and leave. And then they would phone me a period of time later, often usually within, a month or two, and say, I can't apply this. I'm back in the weeds. I'm back in the distractions. I'm back in overwhelm. Can I spend some more time with you? And because I know your time's highly valuable, I'd like to pay you. And at first I was slightly offended. And it was very unexpected. And when I looked to the industry, I thought, I don't want to be tarred with that brush because I don't want people to not get the results because of false expectations in the marketplace. So I did what any smart, savvy person does. I went to talk to other people, peers who were in the space, doing it really well that I admired. And they said to me, the world actually does need you to do this. That's why you're being asked. That's why you're being invited to be paid for it. It's valued. Because if you're going to help a client build $100,000 business, they'll pay you $10,000 because you're exponentially going to get them there because you've been at that table a lot of times. So you do need to help those that are seeking you. And when I heard that perspective, I started to shift of this was not about my ego, which I saw so much in the business community. Coaches were driven by ego, volume, slam dunking clients. And I said, I don't want any part of that. So I thought to myself, if I could do it in integrity, how would I do it? It's time to build that. And I jumped in with my first client that said, this was a hot mess. It was probably the worst sales conversation I'd ever had in my entire career because I was expecting, literally, this is a funny thing, but you'll appreciate this. I was on a podcast. I was there prepping to talk about a podcast. And I thought she was just asking me general questions. And she's like, no, I want to scrap the podcast. I want to hire you. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? That was how it actually, my first client did come into my business. And
wow.
It really was opportunity, clarity, and using the skills I had, which was connecting all the dots, which most businesses really struggle with. And if you can't connect the dots, it's really hard to make the impact you want.
Yeah. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest struggles that people have is figuring out how to connect those dots. But at the same time, like you used my number one value word, which is integrity, right? Because I agree with you. I mean, I think that there are a lot of coaches out there who are not necessarily in integrity with the value and the offers that they do have out there. But what I do know to be true is that when you are making offers or you are creating a business from your values, right, you're able to provide value to your potential future new clients. And so I want to dive into that for a second. So so many of us get caught up in that overwhelm, right? And part of that is also getting caught up in, I call it being on kind of the hamster wheel, like the doing hamster wheel. So sometimes that can be a death sentence, like, let's be honest. So how can somebody think about how it is that they can distinguish between creating value and getting caught up in that hamster wheel?
Yeah, the first thing I always remember is what inputs are you putting onto the table? Because if you're looking to scale, which means to do something repeatedly, I'm not talking it has to be $1 million. I'm just saying scaling is about repeatedly delivering a high quality service. What inputs are going in? Because the simpler it is, the easier it is to replicate. And so when I'm working with clients, I always say 2 things and only 2 things will drive your business. Never lose sight of the 2. how many people you're getting in front of that could be buyers. The buyer piece is often not talked about in circles, but that is the key. It's the buyer piece. And how many offers are you making? And when you are making offers, it is about understanding nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to pay for your time. They want to pay for the result. So for you to create value, you need to not assume what's valued, but to talk regularly about what's valued. And I always tell my clients really candidly, you don't buy a $9 thing from me and end up as a high ticket client. That's not the way I'm building my business. And it's contrary to every other high guru I see in the marketplace. And that creates a lot of problems because that small price, you're not committed. You don't invest your time, bandwidth, and energy. And as a result, you don't get where you want to go. And so for me, when I talk about value, I go, what do you need? And am I capable to leading you to that result? Because I am not the solution. I'm the thinking partner that helps you learn to make better decisions, see where your opportunities are so you choose your lane and have the confidence to execute. And so that's where I think value creation really starts. And you need to get out. And that's one of the big challenges with emerging entrepreneurs or growth-minded entrepreneurs is they think that the value is about justifying themselves when you're the least important part of the conversation. You have to be credible, you have to have experience, and you have to be trusted, but you have to be intentional about creating that so that people can choose to say, I come into your ecosystem because I saw value. And the first question you ask is, what did you see? Because if I assume it, chances are I'm going to get it wrong. And we're in a perfect example for that because I put something into the marketplace that you saw as valued. And when you came and asked me and said, I'd like to know if we'd like to collaborate, I said, what did you see was value? How do I add value to you? This is not my ego at play. I am simply a resource that you can choose. And I have to decide I'm capable and offer only when I'm really sure that I know how to help you get there. And so to me, that stays in integrity because you can't simply choose to have a relationship with me and be a client. We have a collaborative conversation and you ask and I offer. We don't jump the gun in that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we are setting ourselves up to fail.
Exactly.
And I don't want to see another business owner or another person, another peer feel like they got taken for a ride on a missed expectation that could have been resolved in a conversation.
Yeah. And I think what you said is so incredibly important. And to me, what this means is knowing that you have the power to say no, because that is in service of a potential client, right? Because I never want to get into a relationship with a client where I don't see how it is that I can serve them. And you bring up another really good point, which is, we're a conduit for them, right? We're helping them to see what they can't and asking them the right questions to guide them in their right path. It's not that we have the answers, right? I see my clients as having the answers. I see them as being the experts in what is right for them. But I think that, so many times, we live in this world that, we feel like, we got to do it now. I mean, this used to be my methodology. It's like, I got to do it now. I got to do it now. I'm already behind because I'm not doing it now. And, and I feel a world where, we value quantity, right, over quality. But I'm wondering, how can somebody who's listening effectively, be able to find the right clients, communicate with them, and communicate the importance of that slowdown, right, for them to really strategically create the right path for themselves?
When we think it's all about us and we're justifying the how, the classic example I see to people is they launch a new program or services and it's all about the how. 5% of the marketplace cares about the how. The other 95% does not, because the 95% who does not goes, oh my God, that sounds like I'm going to have to do some work. And they back away. It is work. If you want to create a movement from where you are to where you want to go, it requires effort. Focused effort is my recommendation, but it's not rainbows and unicorns. There's effort and progress and iteration and growth. And that's all sticky and uncomfortable. That's why it's better to hold somebody's hand to do it. But what I think is important when we talk about value is two things. For your person in the dark, they are looking for a much smaller win than you can possibly even get your head around. And I think some of the challenges with when we get caught into that how and trying to throw all the bells, whistles, unicorns, lollipops, and rainbows at it is, it's not that they don't want it. It's not that that's not what they're searching for. And a classic example to this for me, when I'm working with clients, I have clients that say, I want to help you live your best life. And that makes me cringe on every level, because I said, it's not that I don't want that, but I didn't get out of bed looking for that today. And to me, that seems really far from the epic meltdown I had having coffee this morning. So I disconnect to you, and I could be your buyer. And what I tell people when you're figuring out who do you want to serve is you want to think about the moments that create movement. What is the really small step that they would say, that feels like progress? Because progress feels something that I could repeat. And we talked about scale. Yeah. The way you get momentum is to have repeated successes over and over and over again. And the movement creates the moment. And so I always tell people, you need to really understand what's the moments that create movement. Your goal is to interrupt, intersect, and show an alternate way on the other side, because they can't see it yet, or they don't feel it's relatable to them in their current distress. And I said, you don't need to solve it. You need to show the possibility. And that goes back to what we chatted earlier, which is your goal is to create curiosity. And what makes you value is your ability to see the sequence, not to tell them there's 30 steps, because that's not helpful, but here's the next one step. And this step leads to this step. And when I get hired as a mentor, it's not that I will tell you, here's the answer, but I will tell you, here's the 50,000 things I've tried. And I have a lot of experience, and that's where the value is created. Because I will tell you what some options are if you can't yet see the other side, but then we'll sit and say, what feels like your lane? Because to be successful, to have a handle on your own capacity, you get to intentionally choose. What do you say yes to? What do you say no to? And I'll give you an example in my own business, because I really bucked the trend and I'm proud of that decision. I decided in 2023 that I would remove all of my group programs and my masterminds. In the industry, everyone was moving to group, everyone was going to volume, everybody wanted low ticket, high thing. And it was all about me stuffing my pockets. That really was the energy that was about there. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm not here for that. It doesn't sit with my integrity. I'm watching people get left behind. And I'm watching gurus or experts who position themselves as such, saying, here's the one way and the only way to do that, which isn't accurate at all. And so I said, I don't want to be part of that. I am going to focus only on serving high touch, high impact clients for the rest of the year as I watch what's happening in the marketplace, because I believe there's a place to do that. And I said, I also believe you can scale in value and not be so focused on the volume, because I only wanted to work a certain number of hours. And I had a very clear idea what that capacity looked like. My business had the best year ever, serving less people more richly to achieve faster results. And it's amazing to see the belief system that it creates. And as my business evolves, I'm able to bring more value. So I said, as much as I'm, you know what you get from day one, what is important when you're choosing a wagon to hitch to is, are they in movement too? Because all of that crescendo falls down to you as a benefit to somebody who's in motion. And so I think, you have to look at what are the things that create movement. You have to know what are the really small things that build momentum. And you need to be clear that if you slow it down for them, it's going to sound oversimple to your brain. It is where they need to be met. And you can say, yes, there's a longer path. As long as in integrity-wise, you're not trying to make them dependent on you forever. Please don't do that. Your goal is to make them independent, to move on, or to graduate, or to take their next step. You might have steps you can help with, but don't self-fulfill your pocket, please. It just makes me crazy to see that. And I say to people, that's how you create value. Shift your lens and then equip yourself to be a resource. You don't need to try so hard to sell a mirage. Small steps really are the big things.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I mean, if I could bold, highlight, underline everything that you just said, it's, you guys, everybody listening, like, rewind and go back and listen to what Christine just said. That is so incredibly important. And what I am hearing you say is it is so important for us to slow the F down, right? We're so quick to want to it's like throwing spaghetti at a wall of like, I can do this and this and this. And our ideal clients are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm literally just like sitting up from having just woken up. Like I'm
hardly breathing. So
right.
Please don't add more at me.
Exactly. Like I'm literally just taking a breath. I am sitting up. Like you already have me in the shower and I haven't even and I'm still in bed. Yeah. So I want to reiterate and also ask you with your expertise, I mean, what strategies and or techniques do you use that you teach your clients, that you employ to ensure that you are slowing down, that you are pausing, that you are not at Z when your audience is still at A? What can you share with everyone as a strategy that they can take?
The first thing is you do get what you measure. So it's deciding what your lane is. So I said, I track a couple things and I choose activities that support only those things. So the first way to get out of overwhelm is remember the 80-20 principle.
Yes,
what
I love this.
20% of your activity is creating results. 80% of the results come from 20% of the activity. Will drop the other 80, my friends. Get out of the overwhelm. So I tell people if two things predict your revenue, which is, as I said before, attracting an audience of buyers and making offers that are valued so people say yes to them, then I need to think about what lane do I want to choose that drives those two things? Because without them, I will have a crater in my business and I will be on life support. So I then tell people in the world of marketing, I want you to remember the strategy piece, which is, what do you stand for? Where do you want to create movement? How are you moving people from curiosity to paid client? You need to understand what's the lane because every tactic out there works. The question is whether it will work for you. I recommend, and personally, do 1, 2, or 3 things only that drive those things. To me, it's speaking, networking, and events. And the reason for that is because nobody got out of bed today thinking that they needed me in their pocket. Until they start to go, that makes sense, but I can't do it. I maybe need some help, and the fastest path is hiring you. So they're experiential. This conversation is best served through an experience, and that can be through those 3 strategies. But I don't do everything else. I don't spend it on ads. I don't spend on complicated tech. I know because I don't want you buying a $9 thing to be a client. I want you and I to meet each other. I want us to be really sure when I want to make an offer. I want to know where my capacity is. And so you get to pick your tactic. And once you pick it, you do it because it's what you want to build your business around that creates the lifestyle that you want. And you say no to everything else. What that does mean is you then have the time, focus, and space to start to master that skill. Because you can choose a lane that you didn't have a lot of experience in. But the only way through the storm of learning is through it. And so if you embrace that, I'm going to do this one thing, and I'm going to learn and iterate as long as the end goal is non-negotiable, you'll start to build up speed. And that's where you've slowed down. It's like, I don't do a ton of things. People's perspective is that you're busy, but you're like, I'm focused on the things I chose that drive the results of 20% activity, 80% results. And I look at what's working and I fine tune. Because what I see in the marketplace right now is all of those that went to that group program, all that went to the high volume, they're dying because the marketplace is saying, I tried that. I wasted my money.
Saturated, don't you think?
I think there's so many doing it poorly that it's got a very negative brushstroke against it.
Yeah.
And what people need and what they're craving is intimacy, access, help me think, help me learn to make decisions, and help me rediscover my self-leadership. Because if you want to create ripples, feel alive and really embody what you choose, it requires you to lead yourself. And you cannot lead if you're spinning 1,000 directions. It takes centeredness. And I think the world really needs leadership. And so when I'm working with clients, I said, I'm building the next empire builders. I'm getting a seat at their table and I'm helping them feel their way through growth so that they can stand up and be an icon, and I mean that in a light way, to be a beacon of others and to hire others, train, teach, guide, support. And I just think that's what the world needs. I made that decision and I shifted my business to support it. And I think it's going to be where the market really resonates with. Certainly those that really want to come work with me will go, that's something I'm not hearing elsewhere.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I made a similar pivot and it has been the best decision I've ever made. So again, you guys, like Christine is giving you gold right now, like platinum. And what I love that I'm hearing you say is that it gets to be this simple. It really does. And I agree with you. I think so many entrepreneurs and businesses try to overcomplicate. They try to put their footprint everywhere. Well, let me see if this works. Well, let me see if that works, instead of really doubling down and investing their time, their energy, their money into what is actually producing results. And I think that's actually one of the greatest lessons I learned, many years ago when I first started out on my business. Was I was trying to do and be everything to everybody when I was in the divorce arena. And then I realized, no, I need to just hone in and I need to focus on what is working, what is producing these, what's producing revenue. But ultimately, to your point, like my goal was to work less and to make more money. And that was in high ticket. And so similarly, I have shifted my entire business model into focusing on that high ticket. And everything you're saying is just, this is why I needed you to be here today. Because I'm she gets it.
And I would just add one thing. And I think the difference is whether you chase the market or whether you have faith to attract the market. And I think what I'm hearing and what I think, I just will stand on my soapbox forever about, is I would rather you be the magnet. And I think some of the big challenges is that if you are clear on what you stand for and you're clear on the value that you can help create and you're clear on why you're the must hire, you need to own the integrity that says, I know there's a market for me. And what could be the reality is that you're not in the right rooms. You're not creating the right movement. You're not credible in the right spaces yet. That doesn't mean there's not a market. You get to build the business the way you want, to live the lifestyle you want. So, the answer to that is you need to find your buyers. And that is, I get, a really challenging thing for people. That's why I get hired. I said, they're like, can't you just tell me the answer? And I said, I can, but would it be any fun? Like, I know what I instinctively would say for you, but that's not my business. It's yours. And that's why it's important that we do the work to figure out how to do that. And I said, but then you must pull your buyer. There's 8 billion people out there. And here's the truth, which I find fascinating. The marketplace, 47% of it, close the doors because they can't find enough buyers. It's why most businesses collapse. The second is cash flow. If you cannot find your buyer, you do not have a business, you have a hobby. And I will tell you, Google, Pinterest, and YouTube have multi-million searches every single day. The market is buying. The problem is they're not finding you because you're not in the right room for the buyer who needs what you have, because you're trying to sell a unicorn and they're looking to take their first baby step. You can make a really successful business helping people make first steps. You can absolutely walk a very long runway with them, but don't believe for a second that there's not the buyer. Stop chasing it and trying to be a replica of somebody else. Figure out what makes you the beacon, own it, and then say, my most important thing is to have a thinking partner to help me get clear on who that buyer is, what creates their movement, how I can create value for them, and then confidently lead offers, experiences, trusted conversations, and fun. Can we please bring some fun back into the business world?
I would love, that's what I try to do, to be honest, because I feel like the fun has been lost. I mean, I feel like people, creating their own business gets to be fun. That is what gets me up out of bed every day. That's what lights me up when I get on a phone conversation. It's why I love doing my podcast, because I love having these amazing, intelligent conversations to share wisdom with people, because this is what we need more of in this world. I mean, sometimes it can just be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Like I always say, like overwhelm is a choice. Exactly. Oh my God,
I know,
I mean, I
snap,
love you.
snap, right?
100%. But like, it really is like, that is your choice. Own your choice. Choose differently. You can. The rest of us are. That's why we're out here. And, I think the one last point that I'd love to kind of bring us home here on this episode is, some people are looking at you, probably looking at me and going, well, I can't do that. Like, I'm not like them. Or, it's great that happened for them, but that's not going to happen for me. So what would you say to somebody who's, in that self-doubt mindset right now? What would you say to them to overcome that negative thinking?
Yeah. Well, first off, the only difference between you and I, if you're a person who's living with self-doubt, is that you are named differently than me, because we still have the same doubts that you do. The simple reality is that I'm chapters ahead of seeing it, recognizing it, navigating it. And that was a choice to do it. Like, I didn't hatch as a great entrepreneur. I'm 30 years in the making of one. And so I would simply say to people that nothing beats experience. And if you can shift from, wow, I can learn from this, to a spectator sitting on the sidelines, you will be chapters ahead of the clients you will serve. And so this is a continuum. It's not a destination. Every business owner I know, and you and I are women, 95% of women leaders struggle with imposter syndrome. 95%. So welcome to the crowd, my friends. And this week is a perfect example. So I'll just share, like, I know what grows my business. I'm putting new content. I'm running a new event tomorrow. I've never done it. I was on the fence. Maybe I should cancel it, until I realized, wow, I've got 25 people registered. I haven't written it. I've got to figure that out. I've got to stop avoiding the problem, and I need to get to work and do the thing. And where do I start? What do they need me to be? What do they need to hear? How can I guide them, inspire them, and illuminate the gap and create movement? And so it's a wobbly week, but I'm committed to the experience. And I do it in December, and I do this intentionally. I've done it a couple of years now in my business. I launch new things right in the middle of a really crazy time, because two things are happening. People are reflecting. I have a uncrowded marketplace, and that means I will start January really strong. So I'm like, go wobble now. I can't get better in January if I don't do it in December. So
I agree.
Take the action, because your simple action puts you light years ahead of where you were when you got out of bed.
Amen. I mean, I cannot agree with everything that you said more today, Christine. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. And I want to make sure that all of our listeners know where they can find you.
So you can find me at ChristineCampbellRapin.com. My name is spelled on the screen. It'll be in the show notes, but I would invite you to come explore. That's where you can connect, explore what we do, listen to some of that podcast, and collaborate with us. Start there.
Amazing. And I also know that you have a free gift for our listeners.
I do. So if you are trying to figure out, well, what is my lane? Sounds great. I do need to simplify. I have a resource, and it's 25 ways right now. These are tactics to help you attract that audience of buyers. When you go to the website, you'll be able to download that PDF. It's 11 pages of options. Here's my number one tip after you download it. Pick a lane. No more than 3. Start with one. Strategies you're going to say, that's how I'm going to build my business. And then start mastering it and get the resources to equip yourself to be confident in that lane. That's how you step out of overwhelm. All 25 of these strategies work right now. They work for people in my network. They work for people I know. So they're golden. Whether they're golden for you is your commitment to choosing the lane.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing so many great nuggets, you guys. Everything is in the show notes. Go and grab that incredible download. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for you to not do it. There's no excuse for you to not start your business today, because as I always say, like, your ideal clients are waiting for you. They are literally waiting for you to open your mouth, to be seen, to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there. So if there's anything that you gain from this episode today, it is about taking that first baby step towards the business that you want to create, towards attracting the ideal buyers that you want, and learning how in the slowdown is where the speed up happens. So thank you guys for tuning in today. Don't forget to also follow me across social media. My social handle is at Wendy Page Sterling. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. Sending you so much love and light as always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.